Everyone thought Ty was gone forever. Years had passed since he died. Amy had cried all her tears. The ranch had moved on. But on one quiet morning, everything changed. It started with Lindy running near the barn, chasing butterflies like any other normal day. The sun was shining, the horses were calm, and the wind was soft. But then Lindy stopped. She stood still, her eyes wide. She was looking at someone far away, someone standing just beyond the trees. A tall man with brown hair, in a jacket that looked very familiar. She tilted her head and blinked. That face. It was the same one in the picture by her bed. She didn't speak. She just stared. Then, without fear, she slowly walked toward him. At the house, Amy came out holding a cup of tea. She smiled when she saw Lindy, but then her smile faded. Her eyes followed her daughter's gaze and froze. Amy couldn't move. She couldn't breathe. Her hand started to shake, and the cup slipped from her fingers, crashing to the ground. Her lips parted in shock. That face. It couldn't be. Her heart was racing, her knees weak. She tried to speak, but no words came out. It was Ty, standing there, looking right at her. Amy felt everything at once. Joy, pain, disbelief. She had dreamed about this moment many times, but this didn't feel like a dream. It felt real, too real. Her heart begged her to run toward him, but her feet stayed frozen to the ground. Her body didn't trust what her eyes were seeing. She kept whispering in her mind, "Is this real? Please, let this be real." And then Ty smiled, that same soft smile she had memorized for years. Amy's hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. Lindy was now only a few steps away from him. She looked up and softly said, "Dad?" The man nodded. Amy gasped. She took one step forward, then another. She could barely walk, like the earth was moving under her feet. Her tears were falling now, hot and fast. Lindy turned back and called out, "Mom, he's here! Dad's here!" Amy finally reached them. She looked into Ty's eyes, full of emotion, searching for truth. She whispered, "Ty, is that really you?" And in that quiet moment, the whole world seemed to stop. Nothing else mattered. Just the three of them, together. Was it a miracle, a vision, or something else entirely? No one could tell. Not yet. But one thing was clear. Amy's heart, broken for so long, had just skipped a beat. Something inside her had awakened, something that had been silent since Ty's death. This was not the beginning of answers. This was the beginning of questions, and Amy was finally ready to face them. Amy stood still, barely breathing, as Lindy reached out and touched Ty's hand. The small fingers of the child wrapped gently around his. Her touch was soft, but the emotion in the air was strong. Lindy looked up at him with her big, innocent eyes and said, "You look just like the picture beside my bed." Ty didn't say anything. He just looked back at her, and it felt like his eyes held all the love in the world. Amy's heart was breaking and healing at the same time. Her tears kept falling, but she didn't wipe them away. She just watched, like time itself had stopped. Lindy smiled and held onto his jacket. "Mom tells me stories about you every night," she whispered. "She says you were brave. She says you helped people. She says you loved horses, and that you loved her and me." Her voice was so soft, but every word was heavy. Amy couldn't stop crying. Her hands trembled as she listened. It was as if her daughter was saying all the things she herself never had the strength to say out loud. Then Lindy took out a small piece of folded paper from her pocket. "I made this for you, but I never got to give it," she said. She opened it. It was a crayon drawing. A picture of her, Amy, and Ty, all smiling, standing in front of the barn. The colors were bright and happy. "I drew this after I had a dream about you," Lindy explained. "Mom said you watch over us, from the stars." Ty took the drawing and looked at it for a long time. Amy watched his eyes. They didn't look cold or distant. They looked full of love, full of memory. Amy finally found her voice. It cracked, but it came out. "She talks about you like you never left," she said. "She's always asking what you were like. I never knew how to explain it. But now you're here." Her legs gave way slightly, and she sat down in the grass, her hands covering her mouth. "What is happening?" she whispered. Lindy looked at her mother and then back at Ty. "Are you going to stay with us now?" she asked. Her eyes were hopeful, full of trust. She didn't understand loss like her mother did. To her, love meant presence. Ty looked at her kindly, but did not speak. And maybe he didn't need to, because in that moment, Lindy leaned into him and rested her head against his chest. Amy watched them both. The warmth in that moment was something she hadn't felt in years. It was something she had thought was gone forever. She didn't care if this was a dream, a memory, or something she would never understand. All that mattered was that her daughter got to feel her father's love, even just for a moment. Lindy spoke again. "I knew you'd come back. I told the stars every night." Amy looked up at the sky, and for the first time in a long while she didn't feel angry or empty. She felt seen. She felt heard. And she felt that maybe, just maybe, Ty had never really left. Amy sat alone in the quiet of the barn, the same place where she had once found love, built dreams, and shared laughter with Ty. Now, her heart was full of confusion. The moment with Ty and Lindy still echoed in her mind. She had seen him, felt him, heard her daughter speak to him like he was truly there. But how could that be? He had died. She had buried him. She had cried every night for years. Her fingers touched the old wood of the stall, remembering the days when Ty would lean there, smiling at her. The pain inside her didn't fade with time, it just changed shape. She picked up an old horseshoe from the shelf, one Ty had once helped her hang for good luck. Her hand shook. The barn smelled the same, looked the same, but everything else had changed. Amy's eyes filled with tears again. "Why are you here, Ty?" she whispered. "Why now, when I've finally learned how to survive without you?" Her voice broke on the last word. Survive. That's all she had been doing. Not living. Not really. Just getting through each day for Lindy's sake. Smiling when she had to. Crying when no one saw. Her mind flashed back to the hospital. The white walls. The beeping machines. The cold, final silence. That horrible moment when the doctor said, "I'm sorry." It had crushed her. And yet, here she was now, years later, still aching for him. Seeing Ty again, even for a moment, had opened a wound she thought had closed. And yet, it had also brought something else, something warm, something like hope. Amy stood and walked outside, past the pasture. The horses watched her with calm eyes. She looked out at the hills and sky and asked herself again, was it real? Maybe grief played tricks. Maybe love made you see things. But Lindy had seen him too. Lindy had talked to him, touched him. And that was what made Amy's heart twist the most. If this was a dream, why was it shared? Why did it feel more real than anything she had felt in years? A soft wind touched her face, and she closed her eyes. In her mind, she heard Ty's laugh. Not loud, not forced, just soft and close. The way he used to laugh when she teased him, or when they watched Lindy sleep. That laugh had been gone for too long. Amy held her arms close to her chest and let out a quiet cry. Her shoulders shook, but she didn't fight the tears this time. She let them fall. She remembered how Ty once told her, "No matter where I go, I'll always find my way back to you." She had smiled when he said it. It sounded like something from a movie, but now it felt like a promise that had finally been kept. Amy didn't know what was real anymore, but she knew what she felt, and deep in her heart, there was a part of her, maybe the broken part, maybe the healing one, that believed Ty had come back, not forever, but just long enough to remind her she was still loved, still seen, still not alone. The sun was starting to go down, and the sky turned soft orange and gold. Amy sat on the porch, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea she hadn't touched. Her eyes were tired, her heart even more so. She didn't hear Jack walking up behind her. He moved slowly, like he always did, calm and quiet. When he sat beside her, he didn't say anything at first. He just looked out at the land, like he had done 1,000 times before. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full of understanding. After a while, Jack spoke, his voice low and warm. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, gently. Amy smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I think I have," she whispered. Jack didn't laugh. He just nodded. "Sometimes they come back, not in body, but in ways we don't expect." Amy looked at him, eyes wide. "You believe me?" Jack didn't answer right away. "I believe in what I've seen," he said. "And I've seen love strong enough to break through time." Amy blinked hard, trying not to cry again. "It felt real, Jack. He was there. Lindy saw him too." Jack nodded again, slower this time. "When I lost my brother," he began, "I thought I'd never see him again. But one morning I woke up and there he was, standing at the end of my bed. He didn't say anything, just stood there, smiling at me. I never told anyone. Thought they'd think I was losing it." Amy looked at him in surprise. Jack had never told that story before. "But it gave me peace," he added. "Maybe that's all we get. A small visit, a reminder." Amy's lips trembled. "I'm so tired of missing him," she said. "I thought I was okay. I thought I had moved forward." Jack placed a hand on hers. "You didn't move on, Amy. You carried him with you." "You carried him with you. That's not weakness, that's love." His words wrapped around her like a blanket. "Grief doesn't leave. It just changes shape. You learn to walk with it." Amy's eyes finally met his. "It hurts so much." Jack nodded. "I know, but you're not alone. You've got Lindy. You've got this place. And you've got Ty. Maybe not the way you had before, but in the ways that matter." Amy took a deep breath. The pain was still there, but Jack's words made it feel lighter. He wasn't trying to fix her. He was reminding her she wasn't broken. Jack looked out over the fields again. "You know," he said slowly, "sometimes the ones we love come back just to check if we're okay. Then they go again. But they never really leave." Amy smiled, this time for real. "You always know what to say." Jack chuckled. "Not always, but I've learned a few things over the years." They sat in silence for a little while longer, side by side, as the sky turned darker. Amy didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know if she'd see Ty again. But Jack's words stayed with her. She didn't need proof or answers. She just needed peace. And for the first time in a long time, she felt it. The next morning, the ranch was quiet. The air was cool, and the sky was soft blue. Amy stood in the stable, brushing one of the horses slowly. She felt calmer than the day before. The pain was still there, but something had shifted. She looked over her shoulder and saw Lindy holding her helmet, eyes full of hope. "Can we ride today, Mom?" she asked softly. Amy smiled and nodded. "Yes, sweetheart, I think we should." They saddled the horses together, Amy with her usual care, Lindy with her eager little hands trying to help. Soon they were riding, side by side through the open fields. The wind moved gently through their hair. The horses trotted calmly along the familiar trail. Amy let the silence grow between them, letting the world speak through the sound of hooves and wind. After a while, Lindy spoke. "Do you think Dad liked riding like this?" Amy glanced at her daughter and nodded. "He loved it," she said. "He said it made him feel free." Lindy looked up at the sky. "I think he's still riding, just higher now." Amy's eyes filled with tears again, but this time they came with a small smile. Her daughter's heart was strong, and it reminded her of Ty. They reached the top of the hill where the trees opened up to a wide view of the land. From there, everything looked peaceful. Lindy pointed to a bird flying high. "Look, an eagle!" she shouted. Amy followed her gaze. The eagle flew in a wide, slow circle above them, wings stretched wide. Lindy turned toward her mother and said, "Maybe that's him." Amy didn't speak right away. She just watched the bird with quiet awe. For a moment, the world felt still. Amy felt a warmth in her chest, not the painful kind that came from missing Ty, but the kind that felt like love, the kind that felt like being held without arms. She reached out and held Lindy's hand while they both looked at the sky. "Maybe it is," she said softly. As they rode back down the trail, Lindy kept talking, telling stories she made up, laughing, asking questions about the horses, about Ty, about life. Amy listened, really listened, and she realized that even in her sadness, she had missed this kind of peace, this kind of joy, not loud, not big, just quiet and real. When they returned to the ranch, Amy helped Lindy down and hugged her tightly. "Thank you," she said. Lindy tilted her head. "For what?" Amy looked into her daughter's eyes. "For helping me remember how to smile." Lindy smiled back, wide and proud. "Dad helped too," she said. Amy nodded. "Yes, I think he did." As they walked back toward the house, Amy felt something she hadn't felt in years. Lightness. Ty's memory wasn't pulling her down anymore. It was lifting her up. She didn't know how long it would last. But for now, it was enough. That evening, Amy stood quietly by the tree where Ty's memorial had been placed years ago. The ground was soft. The grass freshly grown around the base and the wooden carving with Ty's name still stood firm in the earth. In her hands, she held a small bundle. His old gloves, a photo of them together, and a single wildflower that Lindy had picked earlier that day. Lindy stood beside her, holding tight to Amy's fingers, her little eyes serious and calm. Amy took a deep breath, letting the wind brush across her face. "I used to come here all the time," she said softly, mostly to herself. "I used to cry and beg you to come back. But now," her voice cracked and she paused, "now I think you already did." Lindy stepped forward and placed the flower at the base of the memorial. She took out a folded piece of paper from her pocket and laid it down next to the photo. "I made this for you," she said. "It's us, all together again. You're holding Mom's hand, and I'm riding a horse with both of you." Amy's heart ached, but it also felt warm. Her daughter had never met Ty in life, but somehow she knew him in all the ways that mattered. Amy knelt beside the tree and placed the gloves down carefully. She looked up at the sky, now turning shades of orange and purple. "I miss you every single day," she whispered. "But I can't keep asking you to come back. Because maybe, just maybe, you never really left." Her tears fell quietly, not heavy like before. They were soft now, like a goodbye wrapped in love instead of pain. She reached over and hugged Lindy, pulling her close. "You're a lot like your dad, you know that?" she said gently. Lindy grinned and nodded. "That's what Grandpa says too." Amy stood slowly, brushing the dirt from her jeans. She looked one last time at the memorial and smiled through her tears. "Thank you for coming back, Ty, even if just for a moment. You gave us what we needed." As they walked away, Amy didn't look back. Not because she didn't care, but because something inside her had shifted. The sadness was still there, but the weight had lifted. She had finally said goodbye again, but this time, with peace in her heart. That night, as she tucked Lindy into bed, Amy felt something new inside her. A quiet strength, a gentle courage. She kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, "He's watching over us." Lindy nodded sleepily, already drifting into dreams. Amy walked to her room and stood at the window. The stars were out, bright and endless, and in the silence of that moment, she felt Ty again, not beside her, but around her. In the wind, the sky, the heartbeat of the ranch. She closed her eyes and smiled. She hadn't let go of him. She had just found a new way to hold on. The next morning came with golden sunlight and soft birdsong. Amy opened her eyes slowly, not with sadness, but with calm. For the first time in a long time, she didn't wake up with a heavy heart. She sat up, looked out the window and saw Lindy running in the yard, laughing as she chased the puppy. The ranch looked alive, not just in the way nature always moved, but in the way the heart beats again after being still for too long. She got dressed and stepped outside. Jack was already at the fence watching the horses. He turned and gave her a small smile, the kind that didn't need words. Amy walked over, stood next to him, and together they looked over the land they loved. The place Ty had once helped shape, the place where his memory still lived. Lindy came running up to them, holding something small in her hands. "Look, Mom, a feather. It floated down from the sky." Amy took it gently. It was soft, white, and perfect. She smiled and brushed it through her fingers. "Maybe it's a gift," she said. Lindy nodded. "From Dad?" Amy nodded back, her voice soft. "Yes, from Dad." The wind moved again, warm against her face. The air felt different now, not filled with grief, but with love that stayed. They all sat together at the porch table for breakfast. Simple food, simple talk, but every bite, every word, carried peace. It was clear that something had changed in Amy, not on the outside, but inside where the real wounds had been. She still missed Ty, she always would. But the pain was no longer a storm. It was a song, a quiet one that she could carry with her as she moved forward. As the camera of memory pulls back on the Heartland ranch, its fields wide, its skies open, and its hearts healing, we see what matters most: family, love, and the quiet strength to begin again. And just like that, a new chapter had begun. For more emotional stories and beautiful updates from Heartland Season 19 and beyond, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Nextdoor. Stay with us for more drama, love, and unforgettable moments.